Greetings everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the latest eNewsletter video. So this is the eNewsletter video for May of 2025, and for those of you who are just catching this on YouTube, there is an actual newsletter that this pertains to, and it is available for everyone. If you'd like to subscribe, simply go to muhs.ca/newsletter. Once you've subscribed, you'll get an automatic email. Simply reply to that one if you'd like to get a copy of the latest email, and I'll just send it to you manually. Anyways, so the month of April has been quite the experience for newer investors, as well as a refresher for those of us more experienced, a reminder of how volatile markets can get, and how your investment outcomes really depend on how you react, more so than what actually happens out in the markets. Much of it we cannot control. Can't control what happens in geopolitics or whatnot, but we can control how we react. I was on vacation for a good chunk of the month of April, and I was happy to see that when I got back, nobody had called my assistant to sell all their investments. I didn't get too many frantic emails while I was away either. And I think probably for the most part, people who get my newsletter and really kind of get the messaging that I've been preaching for years now, probably also did nothing, and that was to their benefit. So anyways, in the email, again, you'll see a new chart of the month, which also kind of talks about diversification. I think I'll be doing that on a regular basis now, including an interesting chart that I think is relevant for the times. And the other thing I promised I would do going forward is ask me anything. So I put the call out last month to basically ask me any financial planning, personal finance type question, and I'll see if I can answer it on one of these videos. And the question I got was from Lauren, and of course I'm changing names for confidentiality reasons, but Lauren asks, I'm 32 and I'm starting to plan for retirement, and I would like to know, how much am I going to get for Canada Pension Plan, or will I even get Canada Pension Plan? So I think probably not a lot of people in their early 30s thinking about that yet, but good for Lauren for thinking ahead. I'll tackle part of that question first, and this is a question a lot of people have, especially younger generations, and maybe there's a bit of misinformation going around just in terms of the ability for Canada Pension Plan to fund our retirements. Yes, definitely CPP will be around when you're retired, or at least I can say Canada Pension Plan being one of the best funded, if not the best funded pension available in Canada. If it goes away, then pretty much every other government pension, everything else is gone by then too. So if you ever want to learn more about how Canada Pension Plan is actually funded, this is the CPP Investments website. Anybody can go here at any time. You can see what does the fund stand at as of the last reported figures. It is now almost $700 billion. You can have a look at the actual annual report. It's all public information. This is our pension plan as Canadians, so nothing's kept secret from us. Now, $700 billion, how does that relate to other pensions? It is the biggest pension in Canada, and it is relatively well funded. Now, I'm no actuary, but what I know is we put a decent amount of money into it for what we get out. So generally speaking, it is in good shape relative to most pension plans. When I say we put a decent amount into it, there is a personal amount and an employer amount that we contribute. And here you can kind of see what it actually comes down to in terms of, and obviously we see this on our paychecks, we see it when we file our taxes, how much goes into it. And yes, indeed, in the last couple of years, we saw that number go up. Maybe some of you noticed it, maybe not, but that number now stands at 5.95% each employer and employee. And I always like to say too, the people that get the best deal out of Canada Pension Plan are often the people that you'll see on Facebook complaining about their CPP checks being so small. Well, older generations, when we look at what they contributed over their lifetimes, many of them might have retired before those higher contribution rates came into effect in the last 5-6 years and contributed 4.95% per year. Going back a little bit farther, that number was in the 3s in the 1990s, and the 2s actually in the early 90s, and before that even smaller. So very, very low contribution rates back then, but they still get the same type of a benefit, which is also inflation adjusted nowadays. So if you worked a lot of your career in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s, you get a fantastic return on your CPP contributions. The benefit is not that great. I agree with that. And it never is meant to be a full pension. Basically, it's not meant to cover your entire income need in retirement. Rather, it is intended to replace, in its current state, which is kind of gradually changing, I'll get into in just a second here. In its current state, if you're retired right now, it is meant to replace 25% of your working income up to a certain maximum. That maximum is called the Yearly Maximum Pensionable Earnings, or YMPE. We see that number up here. That is a number that also has gone up over the years with inflation. That number is meant to represent an average industrial wage, and really it's meant to cap the contribution so that if you're making much, much more than this, you're not really getting that much more of a benefit than the average worker in Canada. And indeed, it has gone up fairly quickly in the last couple of years. There's a new component to it called the Yearly Additional Maximum Pensionable Earnings. So what's changed in the last couple of years, and this will affect you, Lauren, too, because you are in your 30s, you'll still have many years of contributing to your CPP, is that we now are contributing an additional amount. First of all, we saw that percentage go up. Also, it is contributed up to a higher maximum of our earnings than before. Rather than seeing just the YMPE go up with inflation, there's sort of an additional amount added onto it. So basically, eventually, CPP, the enhanced CPP, is supposed to replace 33% of a higher number than the CPP of today, which replaces 25% of technically a lower number. So none of this affects anybody who's retired and collecting CPP right now. So unfortunately, if you're not happy with your CPP checks every month, that's only going to go up with inflation from this point on. But for those of us contributing still, it will make CPP a little bit more useful, but you still need to do a lot of other saving. Now, how can you find out what you qualify for? Very useful site. Many of you have probably been to the My CRA account, where you can look at your notices of assessment from taxes. Oftentimes you can see what your TFSA limit is, just not nowadays because they seem to be a bit behind. But there is also something called My Service Canada, where you can go to and find this information. The login works just the same. You go to a sign-in partner and you can log in via your bank. It is a very secure site. I just had to take a break from the video and re-log in because I timed out. And when you go through the sign-in partner, you can choose your bank as long as they're on that list. And it will get you to go through your bank's multi-factor authentication. And then as well, it will send you a text message for their own multi-factor authentication. And once you're in here, there's some useful information. Obviously some benefits if you qualify for them. You can find some information here, but where we want to go is Canada Pension Plan. And once there are a ton of places to go to. But let's go to My Contributions here. And this is looking at my actual contributions. But what you want to look for in your contribution report is the more M's you have, those are more years in which you have contributed the maximum to CPP. And the easiest way to look at it is you'll get pretty much the maximum benefit down the road if you have about 40 of those M's. Here's where it gets a little bit more complex. Obviously, based on age, you'll have certain years in which you have contributed the previous regular amount and now years where you're contributing the extra enhanced amount. And then there are other things like dropout provisions, which make it extra complicated. The best thing I can recommend for you is to go to Jason Yee's website, and I have his website linked in my resources section. You'll find a link to that in the email. And just for this month, I put the link at the top of the email going right to his website. He has a couple of things. One is some really good animations that illustrate how you basically earn your eligibility in CPP and then how the dropout provisions and those types of things work. And also a slide rule that helps you make sense somewhat of the enhancement. Now, I had to look at the slide rule myself, and Jason is an engineer, so for him it probably makes perfect sense. For me, it took a little while watching his video series on how to use it before I kind of was able to make a bit more sense out of it. And so if you really want to look into it, watch his video series and play around with that slide rule for yourself, and it might give you some insight into how much CPP you will get. I won't get too much into the weeds of other retirement income sources like old age security. Maybe leave that for another day, but for now, the summary response is yes, CPP will be there when you retire. No, it will not be enough. you probably will want to save some money to have some additional spending money in retirement. I should say that I find for retired couples earning both maximum CPP and OAS, they can oftentimes get by on that income alone. The problem comes when one of the couple dies. That is when obviously two income sources, basically a CPP and an old age security, drop off. It becomes a lot more difficult for the surviving spouse to make ends meet if they don't have additional savings. So obviously that is really what I'm here for, is to help people plan for those additional savings. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Anyone who's not a client and would like to basically have a sort of 30 minutes consultation, you can find a link on my website, Discover MWP, where you can schedule a meeting with me, quick 30 minutes, ask your questions. Even if you have a question like Lauren's, we can look at what your situation is and maybe I can provide some insight there. Otherwise, find out more about me and what I do, and if maybe a full comprehensive financial plan will be of value to you. So anyways, that's it for today.